Welcome back to a very, very, very special inaugural episode of our coverage of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2 and Legion of Superheroes Season 2. But this week we are just talking about Legion of Superheroes. We're talking about, as a little prelude, the first 6 issues of the Legion of Superheroes tie-in comic, Legion of Superheroes in the 31st Century. I am Bob in Cascadia. That is Matt in the Southland. We are Uncanny Treks. How the hell are you doing tonight, Matt?
Doing pretty well, Bob. I had to read some Legion of Superheroes. Felt like it's been forever since we talked about Legion of Superheroes. It's really only been, what, a year?
It's been a year.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
For listeners who are just joining us, we covered Star Trek Strange New Worlds back when it was out last year. And, you know, it's kind of the gimmick of the show. We like to usually compare it with something. Not always, but usually. And so we looked at the Legion of Superheroes cartoon from the aughts, you know, which on one hand is a strange choice, admittedly. On the other, you know, Bob likes the Legion of Superheroes. He wants to make Matt experience the Legion of Superheroes. And there are interesting commonalities between the kind of utopian futures of Star Trek and the Legion. So, you know, we went for it.
Yeah, and I've grown to actually enjoy the Legion of Superheroes, Bob. So thanks for exposing me to these characters that I've known existed, but didn't really give two shits about.
Yeah. Neither of us were Legion kids as kids. I didn't get into the Legion until maybe about like 5-8 years ago, something like that. So as a kind of prelude, and also I was kind of worried that you wouldn't remember who the Legion were at all after a year, because we're old men and our memories aren't what they were. We thought it might be nice to look at the first few tie-in issues of the series. Okay, so the timeline on these is a little interesting. So issue number 1 is basically just an alternate view of the pilot of the cartoon. And then issue number 2 takes place right after episode number 2 of the cartoon, which is, as you may or may not remember, Matt, is when Timberwolf joins the Legion, whereas, you know, the pilot's where Superboy joins the Legion.
Right, yeah. And then
number 3 takes place after episode 9, which episode 9 introduces the Legion of Substitute Heroes, and then the subs are in number 3. And then issues number 4 through 16 all take place between season 1 and season 2. And we're going to look at 4 through 6 this time. And then next time I thought we'd just kind of do a marathon episode and look at 7 through 16 to kind of catch us up to season 2, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So we'll cover all the issues though, correct?
Well, there's 4 more. There's issues 17 through 20, which take place after season 2. The writer just thought he would do a season 3 because he didn't know if the cartoon was going to get renewed.
Oh, okay.
It turned out to not get renewed, but he only got to do 4 issues post. So after we wrap up season 2 this summer, I figure we should just go ahead and do those last 4 episodes, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Last 4 issues. Yeah.
So Bob, let's compare this for a second. What's interesting about these is that when you look at Young Justice has the tie-in comics as well. And on our Patreon exclusive podcast, X-Men 97 versus Young Justice, we reviewed those issues. And what I love about those is that they kind of expand on everything that's already been discussed in the episodes. And with what you just did here, where you took us through like where each episode, you know, falls within each issue, do you feel like it's the same here, or do you feel like this is just more like filler?
I think it's closer to being filler without totally being filler. I mean, part of it, I think, is just the age range and the target audience for the 2 cartoons, right? Like, I feel like Young Justice is maybe like, you know, obviously like kids are supposed to like it no matter what, but I feel like it's more aimed at like kids, like maybe age 10 to 12. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because you have to follow along week to week. You can't just watch you could watch one episode out of context, but you're going to miss huge plot points.
Yeah. Although the episodes do tend to be like self-contained enough on their own terms in some ways, but there are a lot of ongoing plots that are just going to glide right over you.
Right.
And because it's a really tight continuity, like continuity is very important for those Young Justice comics, and they're like very kind of targeted, you know, to fit in the narrow cracks between episodes in Young Justice. Whereas with the Legion show, I feel like it's more aimed at kids like maybe age 6 to 8. Does that feel about right for you?
Yeah, when I was reading through it, I was like, yeah, this would be really great if I was like watching this as like, an 8-year-old. Like watch it. I would like to have just continuing adventures of these heroes, but nothing that's like detrimental or going to, if I don't read this, I'm going to miss out on something in the actual show.
Yeah. So there's really not that much continuity in season 1 of the Legion cartoon, right? Like all the Legion episodes, with the exception of the 2-part finale, are pretty much just, you could watch them in any order. Wouldn't matter that much, right? And the comics tend to reflect that as well. I think they're aimed at the similar age group, and even though I got this chronology from the Cosmic Teams website, which is a great website that has excellent resources on the Legion. If anybody needs excellent resources on the Legion, it's got an excellent timeline. But so you can clearly like do the continuity in painstaking detail, but also it's not really, strictly speaking, necessary to enjoy these comics, which are aimed at a younger audience and are not very continuity heavy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah. These comics they're more fun as far as just like reading and going along with them and what's happening. Kind of like I didn't have to think as much as I did with the Young Justice ones, because the Young Justice I was looking for Easter eggs more so of like shit that was connected to the actual episodes and things. Yeah. So
no, that makes sense. That makes sense. And one thing to think about too, though, is season 2 does get a little bit darker and a little bit more serialized. So the show we watched last summer is not exactly going to be the show we're going to watch this summer, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
And I honestly can't remember much. We said we have four issues that we'll look at at the end of the summer that take place after season 2. And I honestly don't remember anything about them. I've read them, but they just didn't stick. So I don't know if they get much darker or if they keep this kind of same tone. One thing that is a kind of harbinger of things to come. Did you like, and we'll get to it in great detail, but did you like the Green Lantern issue, which is the last issue we're talking about today, issue number 6?
I was interested to see their take on the Green Lanterns. I didn't have a problem with it, but I mean, it wasn't anything like spectacular.
So from my admittedly somewhat sketchy memories of the rest of the series, that Green Lantern issue is going to really set the tone for a lot of the issues to come. A lot of them are going to deal with like kind of, you see like elements of DC continuity in the 31st century in a very kid-friendly way.
Oh, okay. So they're going to revisit like things that would have been in DC's past, but with like updated for the future, kind of like they do with the Green Lantern here. How you have this conglomeration of Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner.
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk about Jordana Gardner. Don't worry. But I think that's a pretty. From my memory, that's really where like the issues like 7 through 16. Are going to really take us.
Kind of reminds me of what Batman Beyond did with their future stuff, because they did have some like newer things that were introduced, but they also had a lot of episodes that just went back to the old villains, but updated versions of those villains or updated, redesigned concepts, like Like for example, Bane. Okay, yeah, there was an episode where like the legit Bane was on it, and he was addicted to the drug, and it turned out to be this old man that just had to be constantly fed venom. He was weak and couldn't do anything.
And it's also just kind of like, what does Venom look like in the Batman Beyond future?
Right, but at the same time, you've got like people on the street that are like injecting it into him through patches. So it's like it's the same idea, you know what I mean? Like same, like you're a futurized version of these characters. Or
no, that makes sense. And especially what Batman Beyond did with, do they call it the Justice League Unlimited? Is that what they call it?
Yes. Yeah. You have like old school, you have like old Static Shock on it with like, long Shazam beard.
I think they did even more of that in the Batman Beyond comics.
Oh yeah. The Batman Beyond comics took it to the next level.
Which I do want to read those someday, and I actually also want to watch Batman Beyond, fully someday, but I haven't done either yet.
Batman Beyond's a fun watch through, but We'll get to that another day. Let's jump into these comics.
maybe in the future, if we exhaust the original Batman animated series, there's always Batman Beyond, I suppose. So yeah, like you said, let's issue as yesterday's hero. It's written by Jay Torres, who's not going to be the writer for everything, but is going to be the writer, I think, for the majority of these 20 issues that we cover this summer. And then the penciler is China Clugston, who I have to admit I'm not familiar with. And do you want to walk us through the plot of issue number 1, Yesterday's Hero?
Sure. So right after the pilot of the cartoon, we see the Legionnaires' first impressions of Superboy as they each retell the events of the pilot from their perspective.
And so this was a little confusing for you at first, right, Matt?
I was extremely confusing. I didn't know what this style that they do here with the Office thing, where they're talking to an invisible cameraman. It's not conducive to like comic book writing.
Yeah, no, it's a really bad storytelling choice for comic books, I feel like.
It is.
Yeah.
I was fine with the first panel. Like the first panel was fine, but then they start going into this thing where like somebody said something bad. I didn't realize there was supposed to be this omniscient person watching them. Like they're kind of breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Well, not omniscient,
they're not necessarily omniscient, but yeah.
They're kind of breaking the fourth wall though, but they're kind of not. I don't know how to explain it. Like
if you like the documentary format, which for The Office, and didn't Parks and Rec do it too?
Oh yeah, that's fine. But comic books, no.
I don't love it in TV either, to be honest. But at least in TV, like the characters rarely look like right into the camera like that. And when they do, like we're familiar enough with the documentary format, it makes sense. But it doesn't work so well in comics because characters always look at the camera. Not always, but very often look at the camera. And it doesn't mean they're looking at you, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just a very different medium than TV. And so you don't go there. But yeah, because of The Office, it was really popular in the late aughts to do this in comics. Have you ever seen it done in comics before?
Yes, I feel like we've read a couple of things like, shit.
I guess Tom King does it from time to time.
Yes, Tom King does.
Did it?
Yes, Heroes in Crisis. I feel like there's something we've read recently that they did it a lot in. Do they do it? They don't do it in the X-Men stuff, right? No,
pretty sure no.
No, not in the X-Men.
I don't remember it, but they would have been. Blue Beetle was coming out at about the same time as this comic, so.
Well, I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
The other big example I know is the first version of the Guardians of the Galaxy, which would become the movie Guardians of the Galaxy, which is not to say the first Guardians of the Galaxy, because that's a different thing. But the first version of the team that would become the movie team for Guardians of the Galaxy, Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning did a run on them in the late aughts that did this. And it's weird because it's like, on the one hand, it's like a great, because like it establishes that team, which then got turned into that trilogy, which is hugely successful. Like it's probably Marvel's biggest thing of taking like obscure nothing characters and making them like super famous, right?
Right. Oh yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy for sure.
Yeah. So in that sense, like Abnett and Lanning are brilliant. They came up with that. They came up with this team that had this impact. Like it's, like kudos to them. And I like them as writers. But on the other hand, it's kind of a terrible run because it has that Office gimmick to it, which, you and I don't like in comics usually. And it's also just so mired like in crossovers. Like when I tried to read it, or I read it before the first Guardians movie came out, and I just didn't get what's going on because there was so much other like Marvel cosmic crossover business, and like every story was like a tie-in to a crossover. So it's like really historically important, but it's also kind of bad.
That happens to a lot of runs. I feel like even recently, like the Amazing Spider-Man run that's currently going, it got crossed over into this other Spider-Man big thing they're doing and just completely derailed the story. So are you caught up on that run? Yeah.
I only know of what I'm seeing about it from Outrage line, but it sounds like they basically did a weird plot where like Mary Jane is stuck in an alternate dimension, marries a dude, and then they also just killed Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, for some reason.
Yes, Bob. Yeah, it had a better plot going than that. Then it just got derailed when they introduced the Ben Riley's new character,
The new Scarlet Spider or whatever.
whatever his name. He's got some emo name. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Kane or something like that.
Oh, he's the new Kane. That's right.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to jump down like because Zeb Wells is writing it, and Zeb Wells' Hellions comic from a couple years ago is like really good. It's one of the best X-Men comics in the past 20 years. I'd say it's really good. It's like Suicide Squad with the X-Men, but so much better than that. That just sounds. Yeah. And so I don't want to. I want to like keep an open mind and not be like, oh, this sounds stupid. But yeah, from all I hear, I kind of have to just be like, oh, that does sound kind of stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I was sucked in at the beginning. It was really, really good. And then there was a crossover piece that just threw me completely off. And then they kind of tried to come back. And it just hasn't.
I heard a lot of other praise for early in the run. And then.
Oh, yeah. That's why I started reading it. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. But yeah, that death does come out of nowhere. And it's, you're like, what? Like, really?
Weird.
Yeah, it's they're doing like this now. Like then they're advertising like the tie-in comic at the end of it too, like the funeral for a friend type shit. The funeral for
I saw people getting angry online, and not in a wrong way. It's just kind of funny, but it was just like all the people mourning for Kamala Khan. It was like the Fantastic Four, and it was just like, what connection do they have to her? Like, she was on a team with like other younger heroes. Shouldn't you show like the younger heroes being sad?
Yeah. Mourning for Kamala's death. I think that's the name of it, actually. You're mourning for Kamala.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah. One thing I want to point out, Bob, about this issue, though, of yesterday's hero.
Yeah. So get us back on issue number 1, Legion of Superheroes. In the
one huge observation I did make. I know that originally you refer to him as Superboy. Okay. And yes. I get that. And it should be. He should be Superboy at this point.
He should be Superboy. Yes.
But, due to the lawsuits and stuff, the lawsuit didn't really get figured out, I think, until 2008. So that's one of the reasons that they call him Superman here.
Yeah, they call him Superman in the cartoon and the comic. Yeah,
right. Exactly. Yeah, they call him that. But then also what was interesting is on like one of the last pages of the issue, Saturn Girl is talking about him. And she specifically says this, and this is like, oh, I see what they did here. Saturn Girl says, we were asking a mild-mannered farm boy, the newest copy boy at the Daily Planet, who was hiding these incredible superpowers, to quick change into the Man of Steel. You know why they put that there, right? Like that was like we're making sure that people know this is Superman, not Superboy, because he's already working at the Daily Planet.
Yeah, although I'm not going to go back and rewatch the pilot, but I think that I almost wonder if that's like a change, because I think in the pilot he's about to move to Metropolis, I guess, to become the new copy boy. Although I don't know if they actually say that, but yeah, so they are putting it in like, oh, he's Superman, he's going to Metropolis, but it's like they still get him in Smallville,
Right. Yeah, they get him in Smallville, like he's like making sure Ferris wheel doesn't fall over and shit. But he's wearing he's kind of wearing like what I would expect like college Clark Kent to wear. So yeah. There was an obvious fine line they could cross, and they made sure they didn't like.
Yeah, just the legal wrangling of that is pretty funny. The only thing I really had to say about issue number 1, other than the Office style like talk at the camera, was I just thought it was a kind of funny joke that Lightning Lad doesn't know what a locomotive is.
Well, I mean, they don't have trains in the 31st century.
I would hope they have trains. They would hope they bear no resemblance to locomotives. So moving on to issue number 2, First Flight. Here we have Jay Torres, still the writer. Torres does a lot of like writing for like DC young adult, DC kids stuff at this time. He did some other stuff. Manfred Green is the penciler. I don't know him at all, Matt. He did a Power Man and Iron Fist series maybe about 5 years ago with writer David Walker. Like, I dearly love Green's artwork.
Yeah, I mean, this issue looks amazing.
Yeah, Green's great. I think he's from South Carolina too.
Yeah, it's really well. You can tell there's just the art style. It just looks awesome.
Yeah, it's very, very cartoonish, very lively. I think we're just going to get him for one more issue after number 2, but it's nice to have him here. Do you want to walk us through the plot of number 2, First Flight, Matt?
Sure. So right after the second episode of the cartoon where Timberwolf joins the Legion, we see him get sick during his first battle in the Legion as lunar leeches attack the cruiser, but he later proves himself.
So this gives us an important motif of character being sick, which will continue throughout at least these 6 issues. I don't know. I didn't have much to say about this issue. Did anything really stick out to you, Matt?
No, I mean, not really. I was glad to see Timberwolf again because I feel like we didn't get enough of him in the cartoon.
Yeah, well, and we're not really going to get a whole lot of him in this, at least in these 6 issues. We get a lot of him here and a fair amount of him in number 6. But other than that, he kind of drops in a similar way to how he kind of dropped out of season 1 of the cartoon, it felt like.
Yeah, like his whole like motif is just like to tear shit up. You know, that's like his whole.
Yeah.
And be scary looking.
They make such a big deal, like no other than Superboy gets a whole. He's not at all in the spotlight. It's a kind of interesting choices.
Yeah, it's different. But I kind of wish he would have had more of a part in the actual show.
Yeah.
Does he ever evolve further from like his current form? Like he's like a wolf, because he kind of alludes to it. He talks about how like he may still keep becoming a monster.
In other comics, he does sometimes have different. Like in the main comics, he sometimes has different forms depending on the continuity.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, I think I watched this cartoon like in 2015, 2016. It was definitely pre-COVID when I watched this cartoon. So my memories of it are not super reliable always. Did you really get a heavy sense there in like Girl, Wolverine, Cyclops triangle with Timberwolf, Saturn Girl, and Lightning Lad in this issue?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, later on, you felt there's like a Superboy, Lightning Lad, Saturn Girl thing.
Yeah, it's almost like they decided to switch it out. Like they were initially having Timberwolf play the role of Wolverine, and then they were like, nah, it'd be a better love triangle if it were Superboy, Saturn Girl, and Lightning Lad. Yeah. The important thing is Lightning Lad has to be jealous, possessive, and angry. That's the important thing. Everything else is negotiable.
All right, boss. Let's move on to issue 3.
Powers that were. So Sanford Green still drawing this one, but we have a guest writer, Scott Beatty. I'm assuming you're familiar with Scott Beatty, Matt, and you perhaps remember him fondly from Batgirl Year One, but perhaps do not remember him fondly from the Gotham Knights arc, where we find out that Bane might be Batman's half brother.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was an awful comic.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Gotham Knights,
really bad. Ugh. But Batgirl Year One, really good, man. Really good.
Yeah, Batgirl Year One was good. All right, Bob. So the plot of this one, the Coons attack right when Infectious Lass incapacitates all the Legionnaires as a part of her tryout.
Yeah. And so, Matt, we get to see the subs again, the Legion of Substitute Heroes. Did you remember them at all from the show? Were you happy to see them again?
Oh, yeah. I just couldn't remember what every one of them does. That's the problem with these. Like, you see their costumes, you try to put 2 and 2 together. I mean, one was like, there's like an ice guy.
Polar Boy.
There's one that shoots, there's Porcupine.
Porcupine Pete, I believe is his name.
Yeah, Porcupine Pete. There's Doubleheader. It's just a dude with 2 heads. And then there's the stone guy.
Stone Boy.
He's just made of stone, right? Like he can just harden himself. Yeah. What did they throw at him in that picture? Is it a fish?
Oh, I would have to open it up to see.
Oh, sorry. I think it's a fish. But then, of course, we get the best character ever, Bob. Infectious Lass.
Yeah. So all the boys in the Legion are really hot for Infectious Lass. Does this make sense to you, or are you a little perplexed, man?
Well, Bob, it specifically tells you that she puts out a love disease or something. They're lovesick.
They're lovesick.
They're lovesick.
It's a good pun, Matt. It's a good pun. Have you read Dr. 13, or have you gotten far enough in Dr. 13 where Infectious Lass shows up?
Oh, yeah. She's a great character in that.
Yeah. Any thoughts on her here as opposed to in the Dr. 13 series?
I mean, not really, no. I mean, just they're a little different. What I remember, though, differently, though, is in the episodes, she really only, like, she could make people sick.
Yeah.
Like, in this, it's like much more specific about like what she can do. Like she would just give people colds. Here she's like giving them like crazy ass diseases.
Yeah, it's a lot more obscure diseases.
Yeah.
It also, I haven't read the Doctor 13 in years. You know, I'll obviously read it before we talk about it, but I haven't read it in years. But in my sense in that, it was like she was like, it wasn't played as like they weren't leaning into the gimmick with her as hard as they are here. Like here, like Green and Scott Beatty are just like completely leaning into the gimmick as much as they can about her being, her having all these like sicknesses around her and like her, just her visuals really, really playing with.
Yeah, she's like in this comic, her powers are. I felt they've been taken up a huge notch to where it's almost like it's like ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's real fun. It's real fun. So Matt, did the Coons remind you of anyone?
They're like the Klingons.
Yeah, that's it, Matt. That's it. That's what I was asking. They actually, in fairness, they predate the Klingons by a couple of years, I believe. But I think it's one of those. They weren't like, there wasn't that much detail about the Coons in the early Silver Age comics. Or I guess they weren't in the early, they were like in the mid 60s Silver Age comics. There wasn't that much detail about them. And I think like retroactively, they've just come to more and more resemble the Klingons.
Yeah, they're just like a warrior race. They're scary looking, very like big on conflict and confrontation.
Yeah, exactly. They do some interesting stuff with the Coons in the early 90s. Where like they have some Coondish legionnaires, like, who join like the Legion as like part of an exchange program. And that was like really neat, but I don't know. They haven't since then. I don't think they've really ever followed up on it or have developed Coon culture.
Okay.
So I see a fish peeing on Stone Bay.
That's what it is. Yeah. I couldn't figure out what was going on there.
I think it's like a alien bird fish, and so it's like like birds do on statues. They they tend to poop on the statues.
Well, in the 31st century, you don't need fucking wings to fly. You can just be a fish.
Fish sort of has wings. I mean, it sort of does, sort of doesn't. Very confusing. Very confusing.
See, Bob, you understand what I'm having trouble with this comic. It's meant for like a 6-year-old, and I can't like follow.
Can't get into the 6-year-old. It's just totally inaccessible to you. Sure. Shall we jump ahead to issue number 4, Higher Ed?
Sure, Bob.
Yeah, so Kristen Boylan and Steve Oy are our writer-artist team. I don't know either of them. Christian Boylan is apparently like a TV writer and is like writes for some contemporary like Marvel DC stuff. Like I think she wrote for like Cloak and Dagger.
Well, the plot of this, Bob, is after screwing up in a mission to stop the Fatal Five, Brainy fears his intelligence is degrading, so he returns to Kolu to retake his aptitude and intelligence test. This was some Vulcan shit, Bob.
It was some Vulcan stuff, Matt. Did you wish that your education had begun in utero? You think that's the best place to start schooling?
I think it probably is the best place. No real outside interference other than whatever your mom's smoking.
Is that going to be your new proposal and your education admin job? It's like, okay, here's how we begin the education.
Yeah, but my thing is the microchip stuff. Like I would like to just like put the information they need on a microchip and just like put it in their brain and then just like upload the new data when they need it.
You're saying that you're going to show with like your education machine and you're just going to hook it up to the bellies of all the expectant mothers and just start downloading the information into the kids.
Exactly. Then they just come out knowing all that stuff and then you don't have to worry about it just completely eliminates all of our jobs.
But Matt, what if somebody who's feeds corrupted information to the kids uses that corrupted information to trick them?
Bobby, that's not going to happen. And what's going to happen is, what if you're not rich enough to purchase the really good microchip with all the really good shit on it? And the poor people can only afford the basic microchip that just gives you like a 6th grade reading level.
So it goes. Shall we jump ahead to issue number 5, Matt?
Sure, Bob. So in issue number 5,
this is Lightning Strikes. We have Jay Torres back on writing, and Clara, who pencils our last 2 issues. So what happens in the plot of issue number 5, Matt?
All right, so Superboy beats Lightning Lad in a maze race, horse stretch race, darts, go fish, eating contest, cooking contest, and rock paper scissors. All of which humiliation gives Emerald Empress an easy time in possessing Lightning Lad.
Yeah, what was your favorite contest that Superboy dominated Lightning Lad at, Matt?
I legit laughed out loud at the cooking contest. It was cracking me up. I'm like, what the hell?
That was good. I really liked the horse stretch, the horse ostrich hybrids. Yeah. This made me laugh. I gotta admit. Did you catch Matter Eater Lad on a talking billboard as Lightning Lad was sulking around in the city, Matt?
I did not. No, I'm gonna have to go back and look at it now.
Do you remember in the Olympics episode in season 1? Do you? I think it was one of the ones you rather disliked, but there was like the
I remember Matter Eater Lad because that was his whole thing. He just eats shit.
Yeah, he was a contestant.
Oh, okay, yeah, he is there. Oh, wow. I did not even catch that the first time. That's pretty neat.
See, that's why you pay the big bucks, man.
Yeah.
You catch Fishbird shitting on Stone Boy. I catch Matter Eater Lad on the billboard for you. It's reciprocal. It's symbiotic.
Thanks, Bob.
Anything else stand out to you about Superboy's just utter domination and humiliation of Lightning Lad?
It was a really fun issue, but here's where you get the idea that, this is definitely the issue where Lightning Lad and Superboy were kind of in competition to impress Saturn Girl.
Yeah, it's almost like, on one hand, it makes sense that Superboy would dominate Lightning Lad because he's Superboy. But imagine if it were Timberwolf dominating Lightning Lad in all of these contests. I think that would be even funnier in some way. Right? Yeah. Like Timberwolf is just randomly good at cooking, even though he lived alone on a monster planet. I don't know. Well, shall we move on to the big climax, Matt? The big crisis, the big event crisis of this trade.
So, Bob, issue 6, the Legion and the Green Lantern Corps sometimes have tension in the long history of both, but it breaks out into war as Teen Lantern leads the Green Lantern Corps to attack the Earth headquarters of the Legion.
Yeah. And so I'm vague, and occasionally comes up in prior League comics that there's some tension of like Green Lanterns not being allowed on Earth, things like that in the 31st century.
Well, they must have done something stupid.
Yeah, I don't know how much it's ever really spelled out, but it's sometimes a plot element there. So Matt, we get a huge splash page in Lanterns on page 8. Who was your favorite Lantern character design on page 8?
Probably the one with the broccoli head.
You fan of the broccoli?
Yeah, there's a broccoli head guy. I think that is the one that they led the genocide against, if I remember correctly. Yes, that was Marvel, though, right?
Yeah. But just as like an Easter egg. Yeah. Of course, you don't. It doesn't have to be. It could just be that Alex Serra was like, yeah, I like broccoli. Here's a broccoli lantern. Yeah, I think I'll be a very basic bitch in my choice and just.
Yeah, the panda bear guy is kind of interesting.
Yeah, we find out later that he's like Teen Lantern's big sidekick, and he gets a name. I think he's the only other Lantern besides Teen Lantern to get a name. But you know what? I don't know his name, and he doesn't have to be important. I just think he's cute.
He's also infatuated with Superboy.
Yeah, there's a lot of love in the air in this issue. So Jordana Gardner, she's Teen Lantern, and her name is Jordana Gardner. Is that based or cringe, Matt?
It's pretty cringe, Bob.
You think it's pretty cringe?
It's pretty damn cringe. When I saw the Jordan part, I was like, oh, wait. And I was like, oh, fuck. And her hair's red. Oh, what did they do here? They could have gone with just the Gardner part, and I would have been fine. But they didn't have to call her Jordana.
I admit that if you describe it to me, I think it's stupid.
Yeah.
But as executed in this issue, I found it sort of charming. I mean, it's really stupid, but I found it sort of charming. It's also, hilarious that these two names would endure 1,000 years, right?
Yeah, it's like the 31st century, and apparently the Gardner name has gone on for that long.
Yeah. Oh, the all important Guy Gardner.
And just to give the listeners an idea of what Jordana Gardner looks like. Just imagine like a Bratz doll, but with a Green Lantern outfit.
I mean, that's exactly it. And when you say it like that, it does make, yeah. Oh God. To move on to happier things. So on page 26, we get a big spread of the reinforcement legionnaires, and a couple of these, or at least one of these, we met at the end of season 1. That was Cosmic Boy, but I think everybody else is new to you. They're older. They're longtime Legion characters, but I think they'd be new to you as just a watch the cartoon. So to run them down.
Hold on. First, though, the one I do recognize, those K-Rock in him.
You mean Block?
Block.
Tyrock.
Tyrock. Yeah, sorry, not K-Rock. Tyrock. Yeah, Tyrock. There he is.
Yeah. So what do you recognize Tyrock from? I can't remember. Was he on the season 1?
Where do I recognize it? He was in season 1. He was in like one episode. He showed up and we were like, that dude's like really badass. And I want to see more of him because he screams, right? Like he's got like banshee powers.
He's got banshee powers.
Yeah.
He's got a cameo at the end of the first season episode Timberwolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that actually kind of like changes what I was saying, because I was saying that other than Cosmic Boy and Colossal Boy, and these were mostly new, but yeah, I think we actually did probably see most of them at the end of the episode where Timberwolf got inducted, now that I think about it.
Yeah, there were a bunch of these guys. And the other guy, too, the one that has like it kind of looks like the guy from Alpha Flight with a cape.
Which one? Oh, that's Starboy.
Yeah, kind of looks like North Star.
Yeah, you're right. It does. The costume does not look like North Star. Okay, yeah.
Now, Dream Girl's power, she's able to like basically see into the future, right, with her dreams.
Yeah. She gets predictive dreams, and there's very cool versions of her, like especially the second version of the Legionnaire.
Although the Rock dude, he's got kind of a neat look too. He kind of reminds me of like a Fantastic Four villain.
Yeah, he is, and he's very much a 70s guy. So yeah, very much created in the shadow of the Thing. Unlike a lot of these characters who precede the Fantastic Four. I guess I'll give it up for Tyrock. I always like to see Tyrock.
But we got a big reveal in that Starro has actually taken over the Green Lantern Corps, but these Starros are able to remain invisible on their faces.
Yeah, were you pumped by the Starro reveal, Matt? Did it all make sense?
It's usually always Starro, it seems like.
Well, I mean, yeah, because he's cool, man. He's a sentient starfish. Hard to argue with that. So, Matt, I did have a very important question here. Do you think Cosmic Boy has the hots for Teen Lantern, or does he just have the hots for the idea of having a Green Lantern on the Legion?
I think he has the hots for her. He's got his arm around her. He's like, he's got that look. He wants some Jordana Gardner. Some JG. When
you say it like that, man, it really does take the wind out of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. You're welcome. Trying to figure out where he's. Hold on, let me make sure there's no other. He just keeps his arm around her all the time, like every single panel.
Really trying to recruit her. He wants her on the team, Matt. He wants her on the team. So I think the only way we're going to recover from this dwelling on Jordana Gardner is just to go to the visual of the week, Matt. What was your visual of the week?
I really like the visual in the last issue of Saturn Girl kind of like using her powers to reveal the Starros. There's this like shot of her in the center, and like it shows all the characters, like her mind is like going out, but it's like each part is like fragmented and you see a different character being affected. It's kind of cool.
I liked Timberwolf tearing off a Starro with his bare teeth.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was really fun. So who is your favorite character this week, Matt?
My favorite character is going to go to Lightning Lad because he's just sad.
You just enjoy Lightning Lad being frustrated, losing to Super repeatedly.
Yeah, he always has to be number 2. I didn't really like him that much in the series. Like, I learned a lot about him, but I didn't like him as much in the series. And now I'm just like, oh, now I understand why. Thanks, comics.
Does it feel like, and granted, it's been a year since we saw season 1, but does it feel like they make him more of a loser in this series?
In the comics they do. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like now you understand why he's always being an ass, because he's not as good as Superboy.
because on the cartoon he's just an ass and it's not as endearing, but here they kind of lean into making him ridiculous, and it's good.
It's justified.
I think I found the I think I found the page you were talking about with Saturn Girl, is the one where like her eyes are entirely pink and you got like her giving the pink eyes to everybody, giving the pink eye to everybody else. It's great. Yeah, that's
infectious less.
All right. So if your character of the week was Lad Matt, my character of the week was Timberwolf. I like that guy. I like how hungry he is for Starro. It's good. It's good.
All right, if I had to pick an issue of the week, Bob, I would either go with issue 5 or issue 6. I really liked the competition in issue 5. It was just kind of funny to see what they were coming up with, and you know how they went from doing like these like crazy feats of strength and shit to like, you know, cooking or having who can eat the most contest. And then we also get a good look at like how the Fatal Five can individually attack the Legion, not just as a full team. So that was cool too. Seeing what's her name? Not Enchantress, but
Emerald Empress.
Emerald Empress, yeah, Emerald Empress.
And she has the Emerald Eye of Ekron with her.
Yeah, that always floats around.
Which is sometimes portrayed as sentient. Sometimes.
Like I would love to see somebody take like a baseball bat to that eye, just like slam it out of the sky.
There's a lot of eye violence in the Legion comics. They're fun. Yeah. I didn't realize it until we started talking about them, but number 3 and number 5 are both pretty funny, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
I think thinking about them and talking about them with you, both 3 and 5 are pretty funny. The ones with Infectious Last and the one with Lightning Lad getting humiliated.
The only thing that put me off to issue 3, Bob, was the way they changed was not as easy to follow. Like when they did switch powers, you had to pay very close attention to who was who and who had what. The way they did it, that probably could have been executed a little better.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think this was really early in Sanford Green's career. So like he's still,
he's still learning,
like his storytelling chops and what.
Yeah.
I would probably mix. Admittedly, it is like fan service BS, but I still enjoy it.
Oh yeah, it was really good. 6 was good. I mean, this whole series, this whole like 6-issue arc we've read is not like amazing by any standpoint. I would say it's not as good as the Young Justice comics, but it's still entertaining and fun. I mean, there's nothing.
I don't know. I would, on the one hand, the Young Justice comics are more consistent, but there's something a little like zanier and fun Legion comic. Like I don't think the Justice comics were ever going to do something as relatively interesting for the overarching series as number 6 is for the Legion, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that, but I mean, then again, they kind of save that stuff for the show, so like.
But yeah, I mean, just that the Young Justice show is like so tight in its continuity that there's just not a lot of room for the tie-ins, right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, like in hindsight, yeah, looking back on them, I think really just number 1 and number 4 are kind of pretty weak in hindsight, but the rest are pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Number 1's probably the weakest in my opinion.
I hope this got us back in the mood for Legion of Superheroes. We'll be back next week with issues number 7 through 16, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks with the first episode of Strange New Worlds and the first episode of Season 2, Strange New Worlds, and the first episode of Legion of Superheroes Season 2. We'll see you then. I am Ben Cascadia. That's Matt in the Southland. We are Uncanny Treks.
Thanks for listening.